Hey, I'm Hannah. I'm a writer, and I've decided to use those skills to fix Twilight. We've been doing this for a minute now. You can find a playlist to see where we started so we can appreciate where we are. If you're into what we do here and you want to see the revised version for yourself, I send out a PDF of every edited chapter in my newsletter. There's also a ton of other goodies, so you should subscribe ASAP, link in the description. Routine reminder before you take a shit in my comment section. I'm a writing teacher and these videos are a super funny way to do it, and I pinky promise, cross my heart, hope to die, that me editing a pirated MS document on my computer is not changing any of your beloved prints of Twilight. Not a single one of them, they're all still there. So backspace, backspace, backspace. Say something nice instead. Have a blessed evening. Here we go with chapter 3. Need to get my screen recorder on. By the way, if you like my felt swampscape here, it's for my Twitch, because whenever people are subscribed to my Twitch, they get to become a little grass tuft. Later, they get to become a mushroom, so like every month they get to be a little bigger thing in the swamp. This is Betty. Chapter 3, Phenomenon. I can't believe the chapters are titled. I did not expect that. I wonder if it's real. It's also hard to tell what's actually in the book and what's just the manner of it being a pirated MS document. Okay. When I opened my eyes in the morning, something was different. It was the light. It was still the gray-green light of a cloudy day in the forest, but it was clearer somehow. I realized there was no fog veiling my window. I jumped up to look outside and then groaned in horror. I'm gonna take out in horror because that's awful and just put and groaned. It doesn't have to be that serious. A fine layer of snow covered the yard, dusted the top of my truck, and whitened the road. But that wasn't the worst part. All the rain from yesterday had frozen solid, coating the needles on the trees in fantastic, gorgeous patterns and making the driveway a deadly ice slick. I had enough trouble not falling down when the ground was dry. It might be safer for me to go back to bed now. I don't like not falling down for some reason, so I could say I had enough trouble just staying on my feet. The ground was dry. Might be safer for me to go back to bed now. I don't like semicolons. Charlie had left for work before I got downstairs. In a lot of ways, living with Charlie was like having my own place, and I found myself reveling in the aloneness instead of being lonely. I think this is the fewest edits we've ever made. It's been like several paragraphs. Okay. Stephanie's picking it up. I threw down a quick bowl of cereal and some orange juice from the carton. Do people really drink orange juice with cereal? I know it's in the commercials, I just don't think that's real. Ugh. I felt excited to go to school, and that scared me. I'm just gonna put was instead of felt. I knew it wasn't the stimulating learning environment I was anticipating or seeing my new set of friends. If I was being honest with myself, I knew I was eager to get to school because I would see Edward Cullen, and that was very, very stupid. Yeah. I should be avoiding him entirely after my brainless and embarrassing babbling yesterday. I don't like how mean she is to herself. I'm taking out brainless. And I was suspicious of him. Why would he lie about his eyes? I don't like was suspicious of him. I'm gonna say, and he was weird. Let's put some of that critique onto the weird old guy instead of ourselves. I was still frightened of the hostility I sometimes felt emanating from him, and I was still tongue-tied whenever I pictured his perfect face. I'm going to take that out just because I don't like it. I was well aware that my league and his league were spheres that did not touch, so I shouldn't be at all anxious to see him today. Wait. I'm going to take all of that out. That's what I'm going to do. I just personally find Bella to be insufferable, so I take out the parts that annoy me the most. Do you guys know the deleted scene from the movie where, I don't know if it's in the book, I guess we'll find out, when she goes into Edward's room and she finds like a rain stick and she says, "Me and my mom used to make these out of paper towel tubes and my pet chinchilla's shit." And they cut that. I think it's a crime. It took every ounce of my concentration to make it down the icy brick driveway alive. They have a brick driveway? People have brick driveway? That seems like so much maintenance. I'm just... Take out brick. I almost lost my balance when I finally got to the truck, but I managed to cling to the side mirror and save myself. Clearly today was going to be nightmarish. I don't know if that's true. I'm going to take out clearly. Driving to school, I distracted myself from my fear of falling and my unwanted speculations about Edward Cullen by thinking about Mike and Eric, and the obvious difference in how teenage boys responded to me here. I was sure I looked exactly the same as I had in Phoenix. Maybe it was just that the boys back home had watched me pass slowly through all the awkward phases of adolescence and still thought of me that way. Perhaps it was because I was a novelty here, where novelties were few and far between. Perhaps my crippling clumsiness was seen as endearing rather than pathetic. What do we think of the word crippling? Do we use that? Casting me as a damsel in distress. Whatever the reason, Mike's puppy dog behavior and Eric's apparent rivalry with him were disconcerting. I wasn't sure if I didn't prefer being ignored. What if we just clear that up a little? So, I might have preferred being ignored. We don't have to have 1,000 double negatives. I distract myself from my fear of falling and my unwanted speculations about Edward Cullen by thinking about Mike and Eric. It's just telly and clunky and awkward. So we could just say, like, on the drive to school, I thought about Mike and Eric. Or, even less telly, she could be, like, anticipating her day, which I think would be in line with her character. Just to be, like, mentally walking through everything she's gonna do. Let's be a little creative here. What are our options? We could be like, my commute to school was when I planned my day. I imagined walking into my classes, who I'd see, how I'd sit without being awkward. The desks at Forks were much smaller than I was used to, and I still hadn't mastered sliding into them. Or something. Like, we can get specific and make her uncomfortable and overthinking, because we're told that's what she is, but we don't really get to see it that much. We just get these, like, telly, clunky whatevers. My commute to school is when I planned my day. I imagined walking into my classes, who I'd see, how I'd sit without being awkward. Desks and forks were much smaller than I was used to, and I still hadn't mastered sliding into them. That's also just like, I'm still a little uncomfortable here without us being force-fed that. Could be like, I thought about lunch. I think it was pizza day, whatever. Jessica would pick all of the pepperoni off of her slice and throw it on Mike's. What about, like, Mike and Eric still made me uncomfortable? There was an obvious difference. Now, teenage boys responded to me here. I was sure I looked exactly the same as I had in Phoenix. Maybe it was just the boys back home had watched me pass slowly through all the awkward phases of adolescence and still thought of me that way. I'm taking out and still thought of me that way just because I don't think it's necessary. Perhaps it was because I was a novelty here where novelties were few and far between. I'm going to take that out because, again, I'm tired of Bella hating herself. Sorry, I don't know when that stopped recording. She can hate herself. That's fine. It's just, like, so much. She also doesn't really have a reason to. She's coming from a place where she took care of her mom. It just doesn't seem, if she's coming from a bigger city where she, like, was responsible for the adults in her life and she did well in school and all of this, she shouldn't be this much like this. My truck seemed to have no problem with the black ice that covered the roads. I drove very slowly, though, not wanting to carve a path of destruction through Main Street. When I got out of my truck at school, I saw why I had so little trouble. I'm going to say when I got to school. Something silver caught my eye, and I walked to the back of the truck, carefully holding the side for support to examine my tires. Did she not notice that there were chains on her tires? That's a little embarrassing. There were thin chains crisscrossed in diamond shapes around them. Charlie had gotten up, who knows how early, to put snow chains on my truck. My throat suddenly felt tight. I'm going to take out suddenly, because who cares? I wasn't used to being taken care of, and Charlie's unspoken concern caught me by surprise. We love Charlie. I was standing by the back corner of the truck, struggling to fight back the sudden wave of emotion the snow chains had brought on when I heard an odd sound. This buildup is kind of like, I've talked about this before, but using words like, suddenly, this happened. Like, by using that word suddenly, you're preparing your reader for something to happen, which makes it less surprising. So if we take that out, okay, something silver caught my eye, and I walked to the back of the truck, carefully holding the side for support, to squat next to my tires. So that way she's, like, crouched down, and then I blinked hard and straightened as a high-pitched screech screamed across the parking lot or something like that. Let me see, hold on. It was fast, becoming painfully loud. I looked up, startled. I blinked hard because, like, there's tears. I don't think I'm going to put that there are tears, though. So I blinked hard and cleared my throat, straightening as a high-pitched screech screamed across the parking lot. You say, I glanced up and saw several things simultaneously. I'm going to say all at once. I don't know if this is like personal style, but the word simultaneously right there seems too thought out, which almost takes me out of the suddenness of the moment. So I glanced up and saw several things at once. Nothing was moving in slow motion the way it does in the movies. Instead, the adrenaline rush seemed to make my brain work much faster, and I was able to absorb in clear detail. I'm just going to put, and I was able to absorb everything in clear detail. Edward Cullen was standing 4 cars down from me, staring at me in horror. His face stood out from the sea of faces. I'm going to take out staring at me in horror. His face stood out from a sea of them. Wide eyes stood out from a sea of faces, like him being shocked. All frozen in the same mask of shock. Perfect. But of more immediate importance was the dark blue van that was skidding, tires locked and squealing against the brakes, spinning wildly across the ice of the parking lot. It was going to hit the back corner of my truck, and I was standing between them. I didn't even have time to close my eyes. Just before I heard the shattering crunch of the van folding around the truck bed, something hit me, hard, but not from the direction I was expecting. My head cracked against the icy blacktop, and I felt something solid and cold pinning me to the ground. I was lying on the pavement behind a tan car I'd parked next to, but I didn't have a chance to notice anything else because the van was still coming. It had curled gratingly around the end of the truck and, still spinning and sliding, was about to collide with me again. A low oath made me aware that someone was with me. The voice was impossible not to recognize. 2 long, white hands shot out protectively in front of me, and the van shuddered to a stop a foot from my face, the large hands fitting providentially into a deep dent in the side of the van's body. This description is awful. Okay, so she's still on the ground. My head cracked against the icy blacktop, and something solid and cold pinned me to the ground. I'm going to take out I felt. I was lying on the pavement behind a tan car I'd parked next to. I'm going to take that out because it just seems too calm. I didn't have a chance to notice anything else because the van was still coming. A low oath made me aware that someone was with me. She already knows someone's with her. Something solid and cold. Is she pretending like she doesn't know that's a person? Okay. I'm going to put forehead so that we think she's on her belly. I don't know if she's supposed to be. Was pinning me to the ground. That way she can't see that it's him, and maybe I'll believe that. A low oath. I guess that's him cursing. Let Edward say fuck 2020. I'm going to put, the voice was impossible not to recognize. 2 long, white hands shot out protectively in front of me, and the van shuddered to a stop a foot from my face. The large hands fitting providentially into a deep... I'm going to put his hands. Are you Ellen Montgomery? His hands fitting into a deep dent on the side of the van's body. Crashing, a deep dent into the side of the van. I'm gonna take out his body. Okay, fuck. The voice was impossible not to recognize. 2 long white hands shot out. I'm gonna take out protectively too. Shot out in front of me, and the van shuddered to a stop a foot from my face. I'm actually gonna make it like... The van shuddered to stop a foot from my face, his hands crashing. Okay, if his voice was impossible not to recognize, we already know it's Edward, so we'll just do the Edward reveal here. Edward's extended hands, I guess, crashing a deep dent in the side of the van. Then his hands moved so fast they blurred. One was suddenly gripping under the body of the van, and something was dragging me, swinging my legs around like a rag doll's, till they hit the tire of the tan car. A groaning metallic thud hurt my ears, and the van settled, glass popping into the asphalt exactly where a second ago my legs had been. One gripped under the van. Why does it have to be the body of the van? Why can't it just be the van? If you're describing every single part of the van as the body of the van, anyway. Okay, so if his hands are moving, one's under the van, and something was dragging me, that's going to be the other hand, right? The other swinging me around like a rag doll till my legs hit the tire of another car. car. A groaning metallic thud hurt my ears, and the van settled, glass popping onto the asphalt, exactly where my legs had been. Better? I think it's better. It was absolutely silent for one long second before the screaming began. And the abrupt bedlam... I'm going to take that out. I could hear more than one person shouting my name, but more clearly than all the yelling, I could hear Edward Cullen's low, frantic voice in my ear. Bella, are you all right? I'm fine. My voice sounded strange. I tried to sit up and realized he was holding me against the side of his body in an iron grasp. Be careful, he warned as I struggled. I think you hit your head pretty hard. I became aware of a throbbing ache centered above my left ear. Do we need the word centered? What's that for? Ow, I said, surprised. That's what I thought. His voice amazingly sounded like he was suppressing laughter. How in the... Let Bella say fuck 2020. How in the... I trailed off trying to clear my head, get my bearings. How did you get over here so fast? I was standing right next to you, Bella, he said, his tone serious. I turned to sit up, and this time he let me, releasing his hold around my waist and sliding as far from me as he could in the limited space. I looked at his concerned, innocent expression and was disoriented again by the force of his gold-colored eyes. Gold-colored? No, it's gold-textured eyes. Shut up. What was I asking him? Oh, like she forgot. Oh, okay. I'm gonna italicize that for shiggles. And then they found us, a crowd of people with tears streaming down their faces, shouting at each other, shouting at us. Don't move, someone instructed. Get Tyler out of the van, someone else shouted. There was a flurry of activity around us. I tried to get up, but Edward's cold hand pushed my shoulder down. Just stay put for now. But it's cold, I complained. It surprised me when he chuckled. Let me take that out. There was an edge to the sound. Shut up. You were over there, I suddenly remembered. Is remembered a dialogue tag now? And his chuckle stopped short. You were by your car. His expression turned hard. No, I wasn't. Wait. I saw you. All around us was chaos. I could hear the gruffer voices of adults arriving on the scene, but I obstinately held on to our argument. I was right, and he was going to admit it. Bella, I was standing with you, and I pulled you out of the way. He unleashed the full, devastating power of his eyes on me. Shut up. As if he was trying to communicate something crucial. I hate y'all. No, I set my jaw. The gold in his eyes blazed. I thought it said bedazzled. Can we stop talking about his eyes for one fucking second? Okay. His golden eyes blazed. I'll leave that one there. Please, Bella. Why? I demanded. Trust me, he pleaded. Oh, wait. Trust me, he pleaded, his soft voice overwhelming. Is it soft and overwhelming? I'm going to take that out. I could hear the sirens now. Will you promise to explain everything to me later? Fine, he snapped, abruptly exasperated. Fine, I repeated, angrily. It took 6 EMTs and 2 teachers, Mr. Varner and Coach Clapp, to shift the van far enough away from us to bring... Do we need Mr. Varner and Coach Clapp? It took 6 EMTs and 2 teachers to shift the van far enough away from us to bring the stretchers in. Edward vehemently refused his, and I tried to do the same, but the traitor told them I'd hid my head and probably had a concussion. I almost died of humiliation when they put on the neck brace. It'll be okay. It looked like the entire school was there, watching soberly as they loaded me in the back of the ambulance. Edward got to ride in the front. It was maddening. To make matters worse, Chief Swan arrived before they could get me safely away. Bella, he yelled in panic when he recognized me on the stretcher. I'm completely fine, Char. Dad. I think I've had enough of that, to be honest. There's nothing wrong with me. He turned to the closest EMT for a second opinion. I tuned him out to consider the jumble of inexplicable images churning chaotically in my head. Shut up! Just shut up! Just shut up. When they lifted me away from the car, I had seen the deep dent in the tan car's bumper. I mean, we got van, truck, car. I think we're fine calling it a car. A distinct dent that fit the contours of Edward's shoulders, as if he had braced himself against the car with enough force to damage the metal frame. And then there was his family, looking on from the distance with expressions that ranged from disapproval to fury, but held no hint of concern for their brother's safety. I tried to think of a logical solution that could explain what I had just seen, a solution that excluded the assumption that I was insane. I'm just going to take out the assumption because we just don't need this many words. Naturally, the ambulance got a police escort to the county hospital. I'm going to take out naturally just because I just think we should shut up more in general. I felt ridiculous the whole time they were unloading me. What made it worse was that Edward simply glided through the hospital doors under his own power. What? That's so stupid. I'm just going to put that Edward simply walked through the hospital doors. I don't know. I ground my teeth together. They put me in the emergency room, a long room with a line of beds separated by pastel patterned curtains. A nurse put a pressure cuff on my arm and a thermometer under my tongue. Since no one bothered pulling the curtain around to give me some privacy, I decided I wasn't obligated to wear the stupid-looking neck brace anymore. When the nurse walked away, I quickly unfastened the Velcro and threw it under the bed. Bruh. And then she ripped out her IV. There was another flurry of hospital personnel, another stretcher brought to the bed next to me. Is it Tyler? I recognized Tyler Crowley from my government class beneath the blood-stained bandages wrapped tightly around his head. Tyler looked 100 times worse than I felt, but he was staring anxiously at me. Bella, I'm so sorry. I'm fine, Tyler. You look awful. Are you all right? As we spoke, the nurses began unwinding his soiled bandages, exposing a myriad of shallow slices all over his forehead and left cheek. He ignored me. Wait, how long were the bandages on his face that they already need to be changed? Oh well. He ignored me. I thought I was going to kill you. I was going too fast and I hit the ice wrong. He winced as one nurse started dabbing at his face. We don't need started. We don't need began. We don't need suddenly. Okay. Don't worry about it. You missed me. Don't worry about it. You missed. How'd you get out of the way so fast? You were there and then you were gone. Edward pulled me out of the way. He looked confused. Who? Edward Cullen. He was standing next to me. I'd always been a terrible liar. I didn't sound convincing at all. I'm going to take out I didn't sound convincing at all because we don't need it. Cullen? I didn't see him. Wow, it was all so fast, I guess. Is he okay? I think so. He's here somewhere, but they didn't make him use a stretcher. I knew I wasn't crazy. What had happened? There was no way to explain what I'd seen. They wheeled me away then to x-ray my head. I told them there was nothing wrong, and I was right. Not even a concussion. I asked if I could leave, but the nurse said I had to talk to a doctor first, so I was trapped in the ER, waiting, harassed by Tyler's constant apologies and promises to make it up to me. No matter how many times I tried to convince him I was fine, he continued to torment himself. Finally, I closed my eyes and ignored him. He kept up a remorseful mumbling. What? Shut up. Is she sleeping? Is she sleeping? A musical voice asked. I hate that. I'm just gonna take that out. Is she sleeping? Ugh. My eyes flew open. Edward was standing at the foot of my bed, smirking. Edward stood. Stop. The foot of my bed, smirking. I glared at him. It wasn't easy. It would have been more natural to... Shut up. Hey, Edward, I'm really sorry, Tyler began. Edward lifted a hand to stop him. No blood, no foul, he said, flashing his brilliant teeth. I hate that. A smile. He moved to sit on the edge of Tyler's bed facing me. He smirked again. So what's the verdict, he asked. There's nothing wrong with me at all, but they won't let me go, I complained. How come you aren't strapped to a gurney like the rest of us? It's all about who you know, he answered, but don't worry, I came to spring you. Then a doctor walked around the corner and my mouth fell open. He was young, he was blonde, and he was handsomer than any movie star I'd ever seen. He was pale, though, and tired looking, with circles under his eyes. From Charlie's description, this had to be Edward's father. From my dad thirsting about this man at dinner, I could recognize him. So, Miss Swan, Dr. Cullen said in a remarkably appealing voice. Ew, what does that mean? What if we just say charming voice? It's still not good, but it's better. How are you feeling? I'm fine, I said for the last time, I hoped. Next time they ask, I'll be dead. He walked to the light board on the wall over my head and turned it on. Your x-rays look good, he said. Does your head hurt? Edward said you hit it pretty hard. It's fine, I repeated with a sigh, throwing a quick scowl at Edward. The doctor's cool fingers probed lightly along my skull. He noticed when I winced. Tender, he asked. Not really, I'd had worse. I heard a chuckle and looked over to see Edward's patronizing smile. My eyes narrowed. I hate him. Well, your father's in the waiting room. You can go home with him now. But come back if you feel dizzy or have trouble with your eyesight. Can't I go back to school? I asked, imagining Charlie trying to be attentive. Maybe you should take it easy today. Wait, this is Edward. Does he get to go to school? Someone has to spread the good news that we survived, Edward said smugly. He's so unlikable. Actually, Dr. Cullen corrected, most of the school seems to be in the waiting room. Oh no, I moaned, covering my face with my hands. Dr. Cullen raised his eyebrows. Do you want to stay? No, I insisted, throwing my legs over the side of the bed and hopping down quickly. Too quickly. I staggered and Dr. Cullen caught me. He looked concerned. I'm fine, I assured him. No need to tell him my balance problems had nothing to do with hitting my head. Take some Tylenol for the pain, he suggested as he steadied me. It doesn't hurt that bad, I insisted. It sounds like you were extremely lucky, Dr. Cullen said, smiling as he signed my chart with a flourish. It's going to make this an action instead, because we don't need so many dialogue tags. Lucky Edward happened to be standing next to me, I amended with a hard glance at the subject of my statement. The subject of my statement? Oh, well, yes, Dr. Cullen agreed, suddenly occupied with the papers in front of him. Then he looked away at Tyler and walked to the next bed. Then he looked at Tyler. Why would he say he looked away at Tyler? He looked at Tyler and walked to the next bed. My intuition flickered. The doctor was in on it. Okay. I'm afraid that you'll have to stay with us a little bit longer, he said to Tyler, and began checking his cuts. As soon as the doctor's back was turned, I moved to Edward's side. Can I talk to you for a minute? I hissed under my breath. I think hissed is enough. He took a step back from me, his jaw suddenly clenched. Your father is waiting for you, he said through his teeth. Jesus, he's so mad. I glanced at Dr. Cullen and Tyler. I'd like to speak with you alone, if you don't mind, I pressed. I'm going to take out I pressed because, yeah, she's pressing. He glared and then turned his back. We don't almost never need and then. So we could just say, he glared and turned his back and strode down the long room. Nearly had to run to keep up. As soon as we turned the corner into a short hallway, he spun around to face me. What do you want? He asked, sounding annoyed. His eyes were cold. His unfriendliness intimidated me. He was just being like a smug bastard, and now he's back to like, don't be near me. My words came out with less severity than I'd intended. You owe me an explanation, I reminded him. I saved your life. I don't owe you anything. I flinched back from the resentment in his voice. You promised. Bella, you hit your head. You don't know what you're talking about. His tone was cutting. My temper flared now, and I glared defiantly at him. There's nothing wrong with my head. He glared back. What do you want from me, Bella? I wanted to know the truth, I said. I wanted to know why I'm lying for you. What do you think happened? He snapped. It came out in a rush. All I know is that you weren't anywhere near me. Tyler didn't see you either, so don't tell me I hit my head too hard. That van was going to crush us both, and it didn't, and your hands left dents in the side of it. And you left a dent in the other car, and you're not hurt at all. And the van should have smashed my legs, but you were holding it up. I could hear how crazy it sounded, and I couldn't continue. I was so mad I could feel the tears coming. I tried to force them back by grinding my teeth together. He was staring at me incredulously, but his face was tense, defensive. You think I lifted a van off you? Time to gaslight. His tone questioned my sanity, but it only made me more suspicious. It was like a perfectly delivered line by a skilled actor. I merely nodded once, jaw tight. Nobody will believe that, you know. His voice held an edge of derision now. I'm not going to tell anybody, I said, each word slowly, carefully controlling my anger. Surprise fluttered across his face. Then why does it matter? It matters to me, I insisted. I don't like to lie, so there'd better be a good reason why I'm doing it. Can't you just thank me and get over it? Thank you. I waited, fuming and expectant. You're not going to let it go, are you? No. In that case, I hope you enjoy disappointment. Edgelord. We scowled at each other in silence. I was the first to speak, trying to keep myself focused. I was in danger of being distracted by his livid, glorious face. It was like trying to stare down a destroying angel. I hate that. Why did you even bother? I asked frigidly. He paused, and for a brief moment his stunning face was unexpectedly vulnerable. I don't know, he whispered. And then he turned his back on me and walked away. I was so angry it took me a few minutes until I could move. When I could walk, I made my way slowly to the exit. Yeah, it's when you could walk, because you're walking. I made my way slowly to the exit at the end of the hallway. The waiting room was more unpleasant than I'd feared. It seemed like every face I knew in Forks was there staring at me. Charlie rushed to my side. There's nothing wrong with me, I assured him sullenly. I was still aggravated, not in the mood for chit-chat. What did the doctor say? Dr. Cullen saw me. He said I was fine and I could go home. I sighed. Mike and Jessica and Erica. Erica? What if Eric's a girl now? Mike and Jessica and Erica were all there, beginning to converge on us. Let's go, I urged. Charlie put one arm behind my back, not quite touching me, and led me to the glass doors of the exit. I waved sheepishly at my friends, hoping to convey that they didn't need to worry anymore. It was a huge relief, the first time I'd ever felt that way, to get into the cruiser. I'm just going to take that out. We drove in silence. I was so wrapped up in my thoughts that I barely knew Charlie was there. I was positive that Edward's defensive behavior in the hall was a confirmation of the bizarre things I still could hardly believe I witnessed. When we got to the house, Charlie finally spoke. You'll need to call Renee. He hung his head guiltily. I was appalled. You told Mom? Yeah, bitch, you're 16. Sorry. I slammed the cruiser's door a little harder than necessary on my way out. What a bitch. My mom was in hysterics, of course. I had to tell her I felt fine at least 30 times before she would calm down. She begged me to come home, forgetting the fact that home was empty at the moment. But her pleas were easier to resist than I would have thought. I was consumed by the mystery Edward presented, and more than a little obsessed by Edward himself. Stupid, stupid, stupid. I wasn't as eager to escape Forks as I should be. I'm gonna take that out. I wasn't as eager to escape Forks as I should be, as any normal sane person would be. I decided I might as well go to bed early that night. Charlie continued to watch me anxiously, and it was getting on my nerves. I stopped on my way to grab 3 Tylenol from the bathroom. They did help, and as the pain eased, I drifted to sleep. That was the first night I dreamed of Edward Cullen. Okay, first things first, and by first things I mean last things, we're going to find all of our Erics. We're going to make them Erica. Perfect, there was only one. I thought so. Cute. Mike and Erica still made me uncomfortable. I'm going to put people instead of teenage boys. People my age. I was sure I looked exactly the same as I had in Phoenix. Maybe it was just that the boys back home had watched me pass the and Erica's apparent rivalry with him were disconcerting. Cute. Okay. We finished a whole chapter in a video. We've never done that before. Anyway, thanks for watching. That's all I got for you today. Give me a like and a subscribe and a notification bell if you want to. My sweater's fluffy. Okay, bye.